That was the first time working with a substance abuse population. You cannot conduct therapy if their basic needs are not met. I'm not going to have a roof over my head. Where am I going to go tonight? That was one of my challenges. It's a therapist's pet peeve to not cry in session. That was a marathon for sure. It was hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm Travis Purdy, an alcoholic in recovery dedicated to giving back to the community that saved me. Join me and my incredible guests on our mission to break the stigma around mental health. One conversation at a time. This is Listen to Your Heart. Our guest today is Robert Locklear, licensed mental health counselor and certified substance abuse counselor. Robert, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, tell us about yourself, man. Like, what kind of work do you do day to day?
Yeah, so I work with the adult population mostly, and I see patients here at IMUA Health, and hoping to help them build their coping skills, learn to live a healthier, better life.
Very cool, man. And then as a therapist, do you mostly see people in person, or do you do a lot of telehealth on video?
A little. It's more like a hybrid version, I would say at this time, post-pandemic, more telehealth than actual in-person. But yeah, if you had to ask me point blank, which one do I prefer? I definitely prefer that in-person experience still.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get a little burnt out from being on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, actually. Right?
Yeah.
So you know what? Before we get back into like some of that day-to-day stuff and mental health, I would like to ask you if you could share about why you got into the field. How'd you become a therapist? When did you know you wanted to be one?
I think I wanted to be one. There's been, I guess, so many experiences, so many aha moments of when I wanted to help people in the community. But one sticks out is, my mom. My mom was, she majored in psychology in college, and she was always there, always supportive and helpful with anything that I needed, whatever goals I wanted to pursue. She was always very, very supportive, a good listener. And so I wanted to take that and, go further.
Nice. And you grew up here in Hawaii, right?
Yes.
And you went to school in the mainland.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that like?
I got accepted to University of Nevada, Reno in 2006. And yeah, I majored in psychology there. They had a very strong behavioral analysis program there. And behavioral analysis it's more working with patients with autism and educational difficulties. And so I was just thrown into the labs there, and I got hands-on experience working with patients who had a lot of language barriers, a lot of deficits, being able to communicate with families and friends, and that kind of hindered them from being independent and being able to live an independent life. So it was a very interesting and amazing experience as an undergraduate student to participate in that type of setting for the first time.
Very cool. And then, if I remember right, you worked in like a call center, like a crisis call center while you were up there?
Yeah. So I got a lot of hands-on experience working with people in the community who struggled with depression. And so I first volunteered at the crisis call center in Nevada. And I had to go through all these rigorous trainings to be prepared to take nonstop calls. And so I was doing that. And then on top of that, after obtaining my degree, my bachelor's in psychology, I was an administrative assistant for National Institute of Health grant, where we kind of focused on first-year college students, first and their families, who were going to school, and the goal of that grant was to prevent suicide, so suicide prevention. And so they would take we called the program, it was actually a college class, so all the students would take this class. It was called the Adjustment to College and Life, and they would take this free class. They would get free books. It was like DBT and see acceptance commitment therapy books, and they would take this class. They would actually be participants, and we would monitor them and support them through their journey as a first-time college student to reduce any stress and teach them coping skills. So yeah, I was also part of that project as well. So to see it from a clinical but researched perspective as well was pretty fascinating.
That must have been a pretty cool experience too, right? Just kind of helping people while all these life changes were going on for them, and just kind of helping them transition, I guess maybe is the right word. Yeah, pretty cool, man. Tell me about, because after undergrad, you get your master's, right? Before you can become a therapist.
Yeah.
Tell me about like the practicum and like internship, the places that you got those experiences from.
So I got accepted to, in 2014, Chaminade University, and one of their practicum sites was Queens Medical Center. And so I was able to work with some amazing clinicians there, and for the first time working with a multidisciplinary, from a psychiatrist to a psychologist to licensed mental health therapists. It was a pretty amazing experience, and that was the first time working with the substance abuse population. It was a blast. I got a lot of experience working over there, learning how to do progress notes, to diagnosing, to running group therapy groups for the first time. I've always thought, it was just a one-to-one. I didn't realize that you could reach out to more
one
patients.
To many.
Yeah. And so that was really exciting, really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. So I didn't go to college, right? On the path, so you get your undergrad, right, graduate, and then you got to go to a master's program of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And then within the master's program, that's where they have like practicum, which is what you were just talking about. And that's kind of like just getting experience in the field while you're still going to school, right?
Right.
When does like the internship thing usually happen? It's after that?
No. So that's the practicum, and then it's like how this program was set up. It was practicum, then internship A and B. So they broke it down, but it just meant more hours, more clinical hours. So that was the internship all the way through. But that was my last year before I graduated. We had that opportunity to be at a site.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell me about some of the mentors that you've had, whether during that time or maybe even right after.
Oh, yeah. I have many, many mentors throughout this process, from many different parts of the field, from the research to, in graduate school, just guiding me through my hours and my ethics as an early professional. What stood out to me the most was being able to be a very good listener, to continue to promote that compassion and that empathy, and let that passion guide you through your professional skills.
Any particular mentor stand out? Someone you can give a shout out to, tell a cool experience about? Maybe you got a cool lesson from one of them.
Yeah. I think one mentor in mine was Christina. Actually, I have two, Christina and Julie from Queens. They really went above and beyond to help me get my hours and guide me through this supervision process when I was a student. And some tools I could take away was just a lot of patience, having to write a progress note and to learn how to remain unbiased on paper, as well, and to maintain that professionalism, not just in the field, but also outside, I may not be the best writer or, note taker. And so that was one of my challenges early on as a graduate student. And for them to continue to support me through that was very, very nice and reassuring.
Very cool.
Because that wasn't in the classroom, it was more in the field. So there was also that added pressure to, impress them, but also not let them down.
And that's another part of the job, right? Like most of us who are not in the field or not therapists, like we think of therapy as, well, you're just kind of talking to somebody, right? But for you guys, there's an entire administrative side of the business, of the field, right? And not just administrative, there's also like the research component. I always forget that there's a whole research like part of being in, psychology. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So tell us about after that. So there's postgrad, right? You graduate, you need X amount of clinical supervision hours, so you can take the test to get licensed.
About 2,000 to 3,000 hours of post.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, graduate. Basically 2 years worth of working in the field. And so that was a marathon for sure. It was hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel, but you know what? I got through it. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was that. So I collected my hours, accumulated my hours through this nonprofit. And I won't disclose the name, but
all good.
It was definitely a learning experience as a professional, but also I think I felt like I needed to be there to really learn how to be a well-rounded professional. And even prior to that, I think nonprofits are amazing. Mm-hmm. They have very limited resources, but their cause and their vision is so rewarding to the community. And so actually, let me go backwards a little bit. So prior to or during graduate school, one of my first jobs while in the program I'm proud to say that I worked at another nonprofit, and that one helped with rental assistance and utility assistance. And, I've been away on the mainland for like 8-9 years. So I thought it would be a great, stepping stone or a place to kind of readjust my perspective, but also get more familiar with the people in the community. And so, the cost of living in Hawaii is very expensive, and, being able to reach out in that way to support them and get them through, their financial struggles was definitely a rewarding experience. I wouldn't have it any other way. And in graduate school, they actually discussed this, that you cannot really conduct therapy if their basic needs are not met. And so they teach us, the famous Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yeah. So, if their basic needs are not met, how can someone really open up, really, confide in any professional if after they end session, how am I going to get food? I'm not going to have a roof over my head. Where am I going to go tonight? How can we get to any sort of, groundbreaking insights or self-awareness levels if we can't even...
If I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And I may have to sleep outside.
Exactly.
And that makes sense.
So that was pretty cool being a part of that. And then jumping forward back to my postgraduate nonprofit, where I worked with a population with substance abuse. So I took everything I learned from Queens, from the hospital setting, and into a population where they heavily utilize the ERs and being able to, help them and build them with coping skills and, a basic foundation to be independent, right, and not sort of regress backwards. But with that came with a lot of, mentoring patients, so I was not only a clinician, but I was the cook, I was the teacher, I was the parent, and it was a self-rewarding experience as well.
That's very cool. And this is, I think, the second time I heard you mention working with people with substance use disorder issues. That's the term now, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, as most people know, I'm in recovery and I just call us addicts, right? But what I do know, or at least what I've learned from other people in recovery, is our population is not the most popular to work with. So if you don't mind sharing because I know you're a certified substance abuse counselor as well. Why do you help? Why do you help our people out with SUD issues?
Well, the why might be just maybe very simple for me. A long time ago when I started the graduate program, I feel like it was such a big responsibility to help just people in need, anyone, right? And actually, one professor that really stood out to me, he said that, you may not always have an ability or a chance to refer out or to be picky with the people you want to work with. And given that I was a early graduating student, I quite agreed with him that, I should be open to all populations, and, I may be the only or the first provider, the first medical professional to assist in any way I can. And so working with the substance abuse, the addiction population, there was definitely a need for it. And, I felt like, why not? Because there is this stigma when it comes to working with a therapist, working with a mental health professional. And, usually the go-to stigma is, oh, we're on a couch and we're talking, talk therapy, right? But no, I tell my patients on day one, I set a boundary with them that we're not going to be just talking story. We have to set goals, and one of those goals is, allowing them to trust in this process to set a specific goal that they want, that they are requesting for, so that we can get there together. And so when it comes to this population in particular, there are definitely some struggles, for sure. Sometimes legal, sometimes, it's just that, impulse control or that, that lack of sobriety that kind of interferes with that basic social skill dynamic. And it can be very difficult sometimes if they're not ready or motivated to open up to a professional or to anyone.
Yeah.
Right. And, to tell someone, oh, you need to stay sober, you need to, maintain sobriety on day one, right? It's like that was their coping skill throughout all their childhood trauma, throughout everything. And to tell them, no, you can't do that anymore is a big ask, right? And so one of the, missions or protocols for a therapist is to always meet the patient where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. And even if they're struggling with sobriety or any issue, right, that this is the best place for them to check in and let's get to work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I love how you mentioned it's not just sitting around talking story, right? Because in reality, they can just do that with their friends, right? Just sit around, talk story. But like you said, having a goal, something that we're going to work on. And for me, for one, thank you for working with our folks, because early on when I got sober, when I finally was willing to ask somebody for help, I was lucky through my work and EAP that I met my first therapist, and he just so happened to be a dude in recovery. So, to look at a guy, for me, to look at this guy who had, 10 or 15 years, and I'm struggling to pick my quick date, it was helpful and also inspiring to just meet one person, and then I went to AA. So of course it's nice to meet other people who have done that and are farther down the line. And now, knock on wood, I'm like 9+ years sober. And it's like, I remember, thanks, man. I remember when 200 days seemed impossible.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure you've met and worked with a handful of people who have gone through that, the whole range, right? Starting, been sober for a while.
Yeah, definitely. And so what I tell my patients when working specifically in this type of population is you get the clinical part from IMUA, and then you get the sober support from the 12 steps, from AA, from a sponsor, right? And you just built your whole network just like that. Now you have a whole team to support you in your goals, and it can be very uncomfortable or surreal.
Super uncomfortable.
Yeah, to have all the support all at once. Yeah. And I'm sure there is a little pressure that gets added to that, or expectations. but you're never going to get any judgment, hopefully not too much lectures or scolding from your therapist.
Right.
It's all about, building you up and building, sort of allowing you to grow as a person within a session.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So mental health, general mental health. So you as a therapist, would you say you have a specialty, or is there like something very common, a couple common things that you help people out with?
So one of my approaches, one of my specialties is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's evidence-based, and it allows the patient to have that sort of structure in a clinical setting, allowing them to be able to explore coping skills, explore sort of their, I guess, how can I put this? Their ability to voice their concerns with room and time of, I guess, the clinical based material. Yeah. And so we're able to work together and focus on specific needs in a timely manner. Okay. And I think sometimes in a session where we're just talking or checking in, time can really slip away from us, and having that approach can really give the patient the more bang for their buck for that hour.
Can I ask you how, because my understanding is therapists, like all of us, like people, they're all different. So a lot of therapists have different ways of helping people, right? Different theoretical orientations, I think is a term I've heard, or some people like CBT. And then I heard you mention DBT earlier. I forget what that's called, and then you said something else. I think it was ACE or ACT, whatever. So how did you kind of arrive at your style, I guess? Is that an appropriate word for that?
Yeah. So one of my other mentors, Dr. William Marks, he emphasized cognitive behavioral therapy because it was sort of the bread and butter of therapy. You were able to give a patient homework. You're able to easily stay in your lane as a professional without getting sidetracked or talking about your own personal life, because that's, not really needed in a session. It's all about the patient, right? And then being able for them to walk away with something in their hand when they leave a session, knowing that even if they may be just, listening or, cathartically opening up their heart about something that's pressing, at least they can walk away with some tool at the end of every session. And I found that really impressive. And it keeps me, in line as I'm building that rapport with the patient. There's a lot of amazing approaches out there, but, building that rapport is the most important part. 70%, statistically, 70% of a successful session is that rapport. And then 30% is the approach as well as the clinical part of it. Yeah.
I also learned that you started supervising recently, right?
Yeah.
Supervising someone who not licensed, still going to school and doing all that. How has that experience been?
Oh, it's been very rewarding, being able to give back to not only the community, but also to a fellow student. I was in their shoes once, and it can be pretty stressful and daunting having to, commit to another 2 years. And having a mentor there made it just a little bit easier to finish.
Is there this weird balancing act of you're still a therapist seeing patients on a regular basis, and now you're also supervising someone? Like, how do you balance, supervisor / therapist?
It's an ongoing.
Okay.
I think when it comes to this process of being a clinical supervisor as well as assisting patients, I think it's sort of a humbling experience where, not only can I provide a service to a patient, but, I can also give back to the program in a way that I'm able to. And, being able to practice what I preach, but also at the same time, I think it keeps me in line as a supervisor to do that. And then also being able to, because this is something I believe in, this is something that I was trained in, to pass down, all of my knowledge onto them for them to be prepared, for the next round of clinicians after me.
Fantastic. So mental health, what are some common misconceptions out there about mental health, like general public?
So yeah, there's a few. One is, is this going to, if I tell you this, will you report me? Will this be, held against me? And so on day one, we're already building that trust, right? And so I tell my patients on day one, we're basically just setting boundaries, and I'm informing the patient about their rights. The only time I will ever break or breach confidentiality is if they make threats to hurt themselves or others. Other than that, your secret's safe with me. Right.
And that's pretty standard, right? For like,
yeah.
that's just kind of how therapy is done, and confidentiality laws and stuff, right? As long as you're not threatening to hurt.
So I think it's just a lack of knowledge of the confidentiality law. So that's why we go over it on day one.
Yeah.
And then everything else, is free range to talk about. And this is probably the first time for them to meet someone who they can possibly trust, right? And so it's so surreal for them, like I said earlier, or being able to, have a space to just talk and have someone listen without any judgments. Going back to working with patients in addiction or sobriety, sometimes in that population, there are a handful of them who don't have any support at all, right? And it can be a misconception that, you could always talk to your parents or check in with them, but they could be the most unsupportive person in their life. And that could just cause more relapses and push them further away from their goals of sobriety. So, to address that misconception, right, taking the first step to join a session, I praise them, I commend them, I tell them how brave they are, to open up and to put all this work together to show up, because it's not an easy feat, right? And so there are many, but I tell them whatever misconceptions they may have, please bring it to my attention. This is how we're going to communicate. So not only in a session like that are we going over their rights, but we're technically mirroring how to socialize, how to behave from one professional to another in a session like that, so that they could take that and use that when it comes to communicating with their families or loved ones or whoever that they interact with.
And like you mentioned, it does take a lot for any individual to go seek out professional help, because there's a big stigma too in our society, right? What do you think? How do you think that stigma affects people who need help and are trying to look for it?
Well, yeah, it definitely could hinder them in many unfortunate ways. Isolation is one of them. Neglecting themselves. They could regress. They could do things to hurt themselves or make things worse, right? And so, that's why this is a great place for them to get it out, so we can kind of clarify a few things, reorganize what their goals are to support them in any way. I tell my patients that, this could be a paper trail to have a mental health day from your employer. Sometimes we are our worst enemies when it comes to our expectations of ourselves that may be a little unrealistic. And we probably picked that up a long time ago from someone that was not the best role model or not the healthiest person in our life. And it just stuck, right? And so having to have this non-judgmental space, this place where we can really open up and explore that, could be very beneficial to someone like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, I've been saying for years, since the first time I went to therapy, I don't even know how many years ago, 15, 14, something like that, is that the thing I like specifically about therapy is that it's a space that is non-judgmental, like you mentioned, and the entire hour, half hour, whatever it is about you, right? And there's not another place like that in your life. You're someone's son, daughter, brother, sister, husband, wife, whatever, friend, and it can never be just about you because that's not really how healthy relationships work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the therapeutic one, literally everything's about you. You know, most therapists don't share a lot of personal information, so if you start asking, they usually kind of redirect back to, hey, we're here to, right, help you with your goals.
Exactly.
Which once I got that, oh man. And I like talking, so I was just, blah, 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 blah. And my therapist did a really good job, early on, kind of helping me do that stuff. And the one thing he did disclose to me was being in recovery, that was the one little piece that was probably the most impactful, to be honest. I don't remember a lot of the conversations, but that hope is what was super helpful to me. So what do you think us in the public, I mean, even from the professional standpoint, what are some of the things we can do to reduce the stigma of seeking mental health care or mental health in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many different ways participating in any sort of nonprofit or any sort of social event that we can connect with the community members, right? From we could do walks. We can do. I think I did participate in a few mental health awareness walks, suicide prevention walks. There was a domestic violence walk recently, and to just get the word out that we're still here, we're still ready to go. If you need someone to check in with, we'll be happy to do so, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? It's there's that discreetness to it, but also it's that that ability to have that space, which I think is still kind of foreign. So maybe it can be, now that you mention it, or I was just thinking, it could be just a defense mechanism that, it's so unusual, so foreign that it could actually be very self-rewarding, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
But yeah, I think the more we are able to show the community that we're present, that we're here, I think can be a great outlet for someone to be like, oh, okay, all I got to do is pick up the phone and call.
Right. And now you can just text, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of resources to do that kind of stuff too, which is great. So speaking from a male side of things, right? I think one of the big stigmas is, talking about your feelings isn't really a man thing,
mm-hmm.
right? And
mm-hmm.
For me personally, I'm interested in, I guess we can call it redefining, masculinity, because speaking for myself, I grew up in a lot of the stereotypical man rules, as they kind of know now. Mm-hmm. And I love sports, and I grew up in athletic man rules is the way I define it, right? There's no crying, right? Definitely not that. And you definitely can't be scared, let alone talk about being scared. So what are your thoughts on, masculinity in our current day and age?
Well, I think that's such a big, vast, topic, and
we could make the whole show just about that.
Yeah. Really. But, maybe I could pick one part of it. So like the crying, right?
Yeah.
If we've been told at a very early age to not cry, to suck it up, to just perform, right? Just rub some dirt on it and move on. Right. And so what happens when you do that? Well, we internalize it, and we're all human, and we can only take so much. And so when our cup is full of resentment, guilt, shame, it's going to get projected. That old saying, I came home and I kicked my dog. Right. Well, it's like that. We take it out on our spouse. We take it out on our career. We just get sick. We get so stressed that we don't want to go into work, right? And so, the body will keep score. And so by all means, I allow my patients to cry, to express themselves. And actually, it's a therapist's pet peeve to not cry in session, right? That's the whole point. You're not going to get any judgment from us and from any professional. And the whole point is to express yourself in a safe, non-judgmental place for us to get to work, to figure out what's making this so emotional. Or maybe we've never been emotional before and it's time to work on that. Going back to substance abuse, the first time we use or engage in substances, we are statistically, they say that your maturity level stops, right? Because it's a coping skill, we call it a negative coping skill. And so for the first time crying, for the first time being able to address your anger without turning to substances can be, pretty overwhelming and intense, right? So allowing us to make these mistakes, allowing us to recorrect, our expectations that we're not perfect, and it's okay to be not perfect. It's not that we don't care, but we need to learn how to be kind to ourselves again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say are the 3 things that people commonly ask you about mental health or about your job as a therapist?
To be the therapist that I am today, I think it would be a disservice to my patients if I didn't take care of myself. So I think self-care is very important in a field or any profession where you're helping a community member, because it's a selfless job in a way. And we need to fill up our own cups as well. And, being able to, for me, I think family is very important. I'm a newly parent, and so being at home is sort of necessary for me to continue doing the job, that I love doing, right? So being able to spend quality time at home when necessary, exercise, engaging in my favorite hobbies, whether it's trying to, cook a casserole or go to the gym or, video game it up. There needs to be a healthy work-life balance. If we don't have that, then I cannot do my job.
So here's a topic that I've created, and I'm hoping to get a lot of information and document it for people watching. I'm calling it 3 levels of advice. Mm-hmm. So the 3 levels go like this. It's all about being in the mental health field, being a professional. The first level is someone who's not going to school. They're not in it right now. Maybe they're in high school, or maybe they're already in their first career and they're thinking about changing their career. What kind of advice would you give someone not in school yet, but thinking about getting into the field? The second level is in school. Third level is finished. Now you're in your early career. So I know it's like 3-pronged, 3 levels of advice.
Sure.
So what would you say? Share some advice at those 3 levels.
Oh, what a great question. Well, I can't speak for everyone, but, if maybe I could kind of reframe the question if it was like talking to my early younger self.
Oh, no, I like that. And that might help me moving forward too. I like that.
First assignment before going to school, before becoming a student, really review your morals and values. What code do you stand by? What kind of professional, what kind of person do you want to be? Who do you want to help? What sort of gets your motor running day in and day out, right? And start from there. And actually, I use that lesson all the time in therapy. I don't know what job I want to pick. I don't know where I want to live. All right, let's go back to the drawing board. What are your morals and values? What do you stand by? What is it? And let's go from there. And it's a very humbling but cool experience in a session. I think that can be very necessary. We need to have some baseline before we pull the trigger on anything. And I think when we make impulsive decisions or decisions that we are not really clear on, it can just cause more stress, self-doubt. We would lose confidence in ourselves. It's okay to change your career and make mistakes, but I think if we could focus more or a little bit, put a little bit more emphasis on the things that we can actually see ourselves doing first, then I think that process of finally picking the career that we want or picking the, would be less stressful.
Love that. What kind of advice would you give someone or your early self while you were going to school?
So while going to school.
Yeah, and all of it, the internships.
Yeah,
And,
I think it's giving yourself permission to make a lot of mistakes, ask many questions, right? Being able to, you know, just be in the moment, right? And be able to soak it all in. You know, a lot of time management, a lot of emphasis on focusing on each and every subject, each and every textbook that they give you. You know, read it through thoroughly, right? Get as much information as possible, because one day you will definitely apply it and use it, right? And so just enjoying the ride. You know, that's what I tell all of my graduate students during the first practicum internship part. You know, make all the mistakes now, just take notes, right? Just listen, be present, right? You're not going to get to work just yet, but that's work in itself, is maintaining that patience. And also reminding yourselves that, you know, this can be fun.
Yeah. What would you tell that early career version of yourself? First job.
First job.
First license, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, it's, you know, it's sort of that pinching yourself moment, right? And I would say to myself that, hey, you know, we need to appreciate this moment. You know, this is something that we worked really hard for. Don't forget to reward yourself, but also don't lose yourself or forget why we did this, you know, why we worked so hard. You know, after I passed my license exam, you know, it was a sigh of relief, but also I felt like I lost a friend. You know, I've been studying for so long, and now that it's over, okay, now what? You know, oh, I can start putting all the tools, all the schooling into practice, you know, with this big responsibility that I should never neglect or devalue, that I'm here for the community.
That's pretty cool. You know what? Since I did not go to college, I don't have that experience. This, you just reminded me, you're right. A lot of people, a lot of you, yourself included, you actually go to school for kind of a while, right? And you're a student when you're a minor, and then you go to college. If you go to college right after, you're still a student. Now you're an adult student, but still. And then you're just a student for a while, right? You're studying, you're always got assignments and that kind of structure. And like you said, the goal's always been take the test, get licensed. And now it's all over. Wow, yeah, like you lost a friend. I like that, man. Thank you. I've not heard that from any other of the therapists that I work with, including ones I've known for years. I've never heard it put that way. That's super insightful. Thank you. How can we support your work? So work, if comfortable, where do you feel like someone could connect with you, or just support the work, learn more about, you know, the organization you work for, or any of those things?
Yeah. So you could definitely visit the IMUA Health Group website.
Sure.
Right. Listed below. You know, I know off camera, Travis, I know you've shared with me, there's a lot of cool events and things that IMUA is going to be a part of in this upcoming year. So you can definitely keep an eye out for us. But yeah, we'll definitely be hosting a lot of cool events in the near future, and so it won't be too hard to find us.
Cool. So Robert, before I ask you our kind of signature question, our sign-off question, if you will, I wanted to share a little bit about what I like about you and your work and kind of how we met. Oh. So for one, I know we met, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, give or take, plus or minus a year or two, whatever that is. And I remember the first thing, I've shared this with you before, but I thought, man, that guy's hair is nice. That's like the first thing I got. And then I learned quickly that you're a Niners fan. And honestly, even though these days I give you a hard time about them losing, I'm still kind of a default Niners fan, even though a couple of their guys I don't like, but there are a couple of their guys I really do like. And I know our mutual friend's a licensed mental health counselor as well. So that was pretty cool. I think over the years that especially this last maybe 1 year now, about this last 1 year that we've worked together, it's been very cool to get to know you better, you know, because those previous few years, it was kind of like in passing. So it's nice to learn more about, like I was just sharing with you, your why, you know, kind of why you even got into the field. Because, you know, I love all our behavioral health therapists. You know, it's a tough field to be in. Some of the stuff, you know, that you all help people with, I mean, it's heavy, right? Those are some heavy things, and there's some real there's some real bad stuff that happen to good people out there, right? Or people get put in bad situations. So, I definitely love and appreciate all of you guys that do the work, because the field, behavioral health as a field, it needs more people. You guys are so severely outnumbered that we could really use, more good folks like you in it. So I'm glad to have learned more about you and your journey as to why you're here, why you got here. And actually, one thing I really like about you is I see you as very organized and goal-oriented, and kind of you like things step by step. And you and I have talked a lot about private practice and kind of getting into private practice, which has helped me become a better consultant, I guess we'll call it, and help other people, because you've asked a lot of really thoughtful questions that either I've not thought about before, or it's been years since I thought about it. So it was nice to kind of like, oh yeah, that's right. There are these other little things, to think about. And I appreciate that, because that's also how I am. I don't know if you consider yourself a planner. I guess that's what I am, is I'm a planner. I do like things to know what the sequence of events are going to be.
Yeah.
I know we can't control everything that happens to us, but I would like to know there's some sort of recipe, some sort of like step by step of we're at least going to be following these things, so I can be prepared for things to go sideways. And the year or so that we worked together, I really like that part of what I've learned about you. So I really appreciate that, and I'm glad
thank you.
we get to be friends and colleagues. So I think that's cool, and also your openness. I really appreciate you being the first guest on our podcast, our first official guest, and sharing what you shared. So thank you, man. And last but not least, so here's our signature question, Robert. When you listen to your heart, what is it saying?
It says to, I guess, keep going, keep beating.
Keep going, keep beating. I love that. Keep it moving.
Yeah,
so,
there's still a lot more work to be done here, here at IMUA and now IMUA Heart. I really respect and, value what IMUA stands by. And I think there's going to be a lot of cool things in the near future. So, yeah, I'm a planner myself. And, it's nice to have, a step-by-step process. But then also sometimes we just have to kind of go with it, and take one mission at a time, one goal at a time. And we'll get there.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being the first guest. And thank you for tuning in to Listen to Your Heart. If you'd like to help our mission, check out the link in our bio to visit our store or make a donation to our nonprofit, IMUA Heart. Like, comment, and share with friends and family. Subscribe for future episodes, and together we can IMUA towards a happier, healthier Hawaii. Until next time, mahalo.